morning, beloved ones. Good morning. Turn to someone and tell them, I see your magnificence. I see your magnificence. Yes. I see your magnificence. I see you. Yes, I see you. I was just looking at the avatar on TV whenever they say, I see you. I love that. Don't you love that phrase? I see you. Meaning I see beyond the exterior of what's showing up, and I see the presence of the beauty of your inner spirit, your inner soul. I see you. And this is so important to my message this morning because we must begin to actually also see ourselves. You see, it's hard to see ourselves because unless we look in the mirror and see something reflected back, which is why we do a lot of projection. So we can see what's looking back and we can see what lies within. But consciously, as a spiritual, conscious, awakened being, we no longer have to project that which is less than so that we can see ourselves. But we know how to go within, into that light of who we are, and touch that light and rest in that spirit and be in touch with that so that it begins to reveal itself from within. That's when you know you're mastering, because if you're still needing projections out here, if stuff is still coming back and you're not able to see yourself, that means you're going to project a whole lot of mess out there. You know what I'm saying? You're going to make it hard for yourself. So this is about a new day, a new being yourself and being able to see yourself. So we are into 2 weeks already into the new year. I'm like, wow, 2 weeks already into this new year. And it feels like time's sort of flying by, but time is flying by. Everything is just expedient, which is another thing we need to be aware of, right? We're living in an age of expediency, which means the moment, even before you speak, it's answered. It's done. So you need to watch what you're speaking, but more importantly, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, because this is a brand new era. You can't afford the luxury of a negative thought any longer, because the boomerang will be back before you even get it totally out of your mouth. So we're here at the beginning of this brand new year, and people are still, at least I am, I know people are still wishing one another a happy new year, right? When I go and I see people I haven't seen, I say, Happy New Year. You know, it doesn't have to be December 31st or January 1st. I usually do it through the entire month. It's still the beginning, so I want to bless people. And we do that by saying, Happy New Year. And I think that's such a sweet blessing. It's such a sweet thought to really want to wish happiness for someone's year ahead, to wish them happiness. And as I began to think about what would it actually take to make for me to have a happy year, a happy new year, considering that happiness, as we know in truth, is an inside job, right? What would it take for me to have a happy new year, since happiness really is a state of mind, right? And it really can't be manufactured out here. There are things and times and experiences that bring us, a feeling of joy and happiness, but those are temporary. When we're with good people and maybe having a good meal, we feel a sense of goodness and joy and happiness, but those things are temporary. We're talking about that true sense, and a couple of weeks ago I gave a talk on happiness, what that really means. And so, how do we have a happy new year when it's all an inside job? So the question would be then, what is the state of mind that we need to be in? Because it's a state of mind, is it not? So what is the state of mind that we would need to be in order to experience true happiness? That's the question we want to ask ourselves. What is my internal state of mind? What is my internal state of being that would then elicit and have me to experience a happy new year? And as I was thinking about this concept of a happy new year, I decided that at this juncture and point in my life, what I really want is to be able to live my best life now. When I was young, I was thinking about what would make me happy or whatever. I want to live my best life now. Not go after so many shiny, bubbly things, right, that I think are going to make me happy. And maybe when you get to a certain age and you've had those things and you see, well, that ain't it. You recognize that there must be something deeper, something greater. I love remember the quote I shared a couple of weeks ago by Eckhart Tolle when he said, even about relationships. When you go into a relationship thinking that the relationship is supposed to make you happy, you're off base. Relationships are supposed to make you conscious, not happy. I love that. Because we go into it thinking, you got to make me happy. This thing will make me happy. This person will make me happy. Inside, what will make you happy with a sense of true joy is waking up from within. So what state of mind would you need to be in? And what would constitute your living your best life now? So I want to live my best life. I'm not so much into what's going to make me happy, but I want to live my best life now. Every New Year's Eve service, those of you who attend the Burning Bowl service, we always end it with the proclamation and the affirmation that says, may this be your best year yet. And it's a wonderful thought. But I'm thinking I want a little bit more. I don't want this to only be my best year yet. I want this to be me living my best life now. See, I don't want just a year. I want a life. I want a life of goodness. I want a life of balance. I want a life of being eternally aligned with the vibrations and the energies that come with being connected to the source of all things good. Not some frivolous happiness by doing this. I love to travel. I love to, do all that. That's great. But there's something deeper that's calling me. It's calling you. So with this being true then, I began to think about, well, what would my best life look like? What would it look like? What would it take for me to manifest that? What are the qualities of being that I would need? What path should I take? What's the direction that my life needs to go in? What activities should I be engaging? What thoughts should I have? And on and on and on. I began to, what would constitute my living my best life? And what would it look like? So here's an assignment I'm going to give you. Usually I might give you some homework at the end. I'm going to give you some homework at the beginning. So as an exercise and a focal point for this new year, why don't you try to identify three things. Write down 3 things that you would need to do or to be, not necessarily to have, but to be and to do in order for you to live your best life now. You can do it now, you can take some time when you're home, but I want you to think, well, what would be 3 things that would actually constitute me living my best life now? And mainly, it's about being and doing, because if you get it too much into the having, you might get off track a little bit. The having will come, right? When you be and do, you'll have. So let's concentrate on that. So what would it take? And write down 3 things or identify 3 things, because this is the time to do it. It's the beginning of the year. We have goals. We have all that stuff. But I want you to identify for yourself, what would living your best life look like? And what are the 3 things that you would need to be and do in order for that to show up? Now, we've covered a few things in the first 2 weeks for December 31st and last week about what might help us with living our best life. And if you recall, on December 31st, we talked about starting with reclaiming our time, right? You need to reclaim the time, meaning knowing where and when and how we waste time. Because we discovered and we said that time was precious. All the different things. Time is money. All the time is what we have is this now moment, right? Any given moment. And in this now moment, in this time, in this now moment is the fullness of God, is the fullness of good, is everything that we need is in the moment. So when we waste it, or when we are sitting there with some idle thoughts and all of that, we're just wasting the precious gift we have to create and to be and to express. So we're going to start with reclaiming our time. And then last Sunday, we talked about uncovering the power of being resolute. Not about making frivolous resolutions that we may or may not keep, but really touching into the energy about being what? Resolute. And all the glorious synonyms that came with that word that I talked about, right? Being purposeful, determined, unwavering, faithful, all of the strong, focused, all of those things. Being dogged, or just plain like a dog with a bone. Just when you are resolute, you are on it, right? So that's one thing that will help us to begin to live our best life yet. But we got to know a little bit more. Because what are you being dogged about? What are you being unwavering about? You have to have a deeper sense of what does it mean for you to live your best life now. And if we're going to do what we say we want to do, we desire to do, then we're going to have to really understand these wonderful things. Being resolute. And all of these qualities that go along with that synonym is good and they're necessary. But I also began to work with this notion of living my best life now. And I had to ask myself, well, why aren't I living my best? Why am I not living my best life now? What is it that's really stopping me? Right? And I'm not talking about things like not having enough money to travel the world and all these things that we think we would do. I'm talking about what is really stopping me from living my best life now. Because if you want to travel, you can, all those other outer things you can do. You can travel, you can get the house, you can get a car, you can get, those things will come. But is that what's stopping you from living your best life now? I don't think so. Because those are really about things, right? Or lack of things. It's about, those are about superficial things. It's not really about what's stopping me. And what is stopping me is me. Me getting in my own way. What's stopping me is me being afraid to be me. To be me. You see, in order to live your best life, you have to be comfortable being your best self. If you want to live your best, you've got to be comfortable being your best self. So the questions we should be asking is not that we want to have and get, but how in touch are you, or how in tune are you with your inner world? How well do you really know yourself? What does it say? Physician or what? Know thyself, right? Well, physician, heal thyself. But to heal yourself, you got to know yourself. Because you can't heal what you don't even know is broken. So how do you get to know yourself? Or how do you get to see yourself? To see yourself not only in all your glory and your magnificence, but how do you see yourself? Are you in touch with the reasons why you do what you do? Or is everything on automatic pilot? Or we just, most of the time we just get in a car, we drive. We want to go to point A. We don't even think about it anymore because it's automatic. We just go to point A. Until you have a senior moment and you recognize, I think I've passed my exit or whatever. That kind of happens too. So you got to be on automatic, but you also have to be aware. But are you in touch with the reasons why you do what you do, or how it is and why it is you show up like you do? Are you authentic? Or do you sell yourself short? Do you hide out, right? Or maybe hide out under the persona of being the perpetually nice person? right? Because we're taught be nice, huh? You got to be, Or do we work to constantly please others? See, all these things were instilled when we were kind of young. I think I got to please my mommy, I got to please the teacher, I got to please somebody else. I've got to be this way in order to get this love and get this approval, right? I've got to be nice, I've got to play nice. All of these things. But what happens is then we live in fear. Fear of being judged, and maybe even worse, fear of being rejected. Because what if they see me as a bad little boy or a bad little girl or whatever it is? And all of those thoughts play in our adult lives as well. Because it's deep-seated, right? We didn't necessarily have the awareness to say, well, I'm good no matter what my behavior may point out. I may have made a mistake. Yes, I didn't listen, or maybe I spilled my milk, or whatever it is. We didn't have the awareness to be able to do that, so things come in unchecked and move into that conscious, unconscious realm of ourselves. So that we no longer stand in our power. We no longer are comfortable being ourselves, no longer comfortable in expressing who we are, because we want to make sure that we're living in a way such that you can approve of who I am. And what becomes more important is that you tell me who I am. You show me who I am by how much I think you love me or whatever it is. So can you stand in your own power? Are you comfortable being yourself? And if the answer is no, that you really don't stand in your own power, or you're really not totally comfortable being yourself, then it's going to be difficult for you to live your best life. You won't be able to live your best life because you can't step into it. You won't be able to step into it fully with joy and openness and, willing to grab the brass ring, embracing life, confident in who you are. You won't be able to live like the life you have is the only one that you're going to get. You won't be able to live in that fashion because you're not sure of who you are and whether who you are is good enough, if you are accepted enough. And if you come to a New Thought Church, you'll hear things like, you are the beloved of God. God loves you unconditionally. We hear those things, but I'm not sure how deep it moves into our being. See? And so we know it here, and that's great, but it must move from an intellectual understanding to somehow the soul embracing it so that you begin to show up differently and live differently. So before you rush into doing all these outer things, doing what you say you want to do, it's best to take some time. We're going to reclaim our time, but that means we're going to reclaim our time so that we begin to know who we are. Reclaim your time so that you can begin to look at oneself and see what's standing in the way of your being your authentic self. Because if you don't, some other part of you is going to try to keep struggling out here without understanding that's not really what you want. You're seeking something different. So going within. So I thought of two powerful examples of what might be standing in our way, or how we can show and demonstrate that we're comfortable with ourselves. And one of them is to understand, how comfortable are you with your no? That is, your ability to say no to someone or something that you value and hold dear, right? But secretly fear that if you say no to them or no to that they will in turn then what? Reject you. Maybe even unfriend you. Because, I was thinking about this whole concept of being, nobody wants to be unfriended. But if you notice this, unfriending somebody on social media is quite easy, right? Because somehow the law, you think you're being anonymous or somebody's not seeing or whatever, and if you don't like what they're saying and they're on your feed, or you don't, bam, hit the button, I unfriend you. Gone. Be gone from my life. Boom, boom, boom. Now, there are people I've wanted to unfriend, but I thought, well, will they see that I've unfriended them? But it seems to be easy to unfriend somebody or to write something, which is why you see all this negative energy that people feel free to express on social media that they would not dare to express in person, right? It would never come up. They wouldn't want you to see their intolerance or their hatred or whatever, but for me to be able to, I can put that out there because nobody somehow knows who I am. Of course, it's erroneous thinking, but that's how easy it is, right? But we're not so easy to do it from an authentic, real, in-person experience. Not so easy to do. And I'm not sure whether we would really want to necessarily unfriend somebody, but there are times in which we would make a conscious choice to say, I choose not to have this experience or this individual in my life, but that's fine. That is fine. But rarely do we do that. Rarely do we have the courage to say, no, this is no. I'm saying no to this. I'm saying no to that person. I'm saying no to this experience. I choose not to have that. And so we have to learn how to value our no without thinking we have to be undercover to say it. Because when it's undercover, it comes out nasty. It doesn't, you know what I mean? It comes out with a lot of energy because we're so busy hiding, we're so busy being fearful of actually expressing with love our no, that we then we repress it. And you know everything that's repressed is going to get expressed, but not in necessarily a balanced, healthy way. So we see all this opportunity to let me just express all this negativity out here because we haven't found a way in our society to be able to speak our yay, yay, and our nay, nay with love without fear of being rejected. We haven't really even taken the time to honor somebody else's no, a simple no. The Bible says, let your speech be either yay, yay, or nay, nay. And that anything, he says, any kind of communication in between that comes from evil. Now, that's strong, but what that means is that whenever we can't be comfortable with simply giving our simple yes or our no, all of a sudden what else comes and we start ending around, well, you see, and we start making excuses. We start rationalizing. We start justifying our position, explaining, and all of a sudden it's so far from the truth, but we feel, okay, they should be comfortable with that, right? But now we are out of alignment, right? We are out of integrity because we've added so much onto our no to make it comfortable for the other person. Now, I'm not saying we have to be ruthless in our expression because we can be kind and true and compassionate, but also being clear. And it takes a centered, balanced soul to be able to be comfortable enough within yourself to speak your truth. You know, I'm noticing when I don't speak my truth because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. So I'll couch the truth in some kind of sweetness, right? So that it'll be more palatable for you to taste. But it might not even be near my truth. So how are we being authentic and being true to ourselves? Because when we constantly do that, then what builds up is animosity and anger or whatever. Then you're with someone who you've done that, but you're not comfortable because you're not being truthful. I'm not being myself, so I don't want to be with you because I can't be myself in your presence. Right? And I may not even know what myself is. I've been so used to just making sure that you got a sense of who you think I am and who I think I want you to think I am, that I don't even know who I am. Let your speech be yay, yay, and nay, nay. Now, it can be uncomfortable. It doesn't always have to be easy. It can be a struggle. You know, when somebody just simply gives you a no. Because let's face it, we want an explanation, don't we? If we're honest, we don't want to accept somebody's plain, clear no. Well, why? is the next question. I want to know why. Justify to me why. No. So we're uncomfortable in saying that because I think I must offer you some excuse, some rationalization, whatever, in order for you to continue to want to friend me. So this is about standing in your power, standing in your own presence with love and compassion, but the love and compassion to be yourself, to give honor to yourself, because when you honor yourself, others will then honor you. But when you dishonor yourself by being inauthentic, eventually that's going to come back and it interferes with your relationships, your ability to really to be vulnerable, to be open, to be connected. I can't connect to you if I can't feel that you're going to accept me. So I'm not connected. So this is a spiritual thing that we're talking about. We have to learn to stand in the power of our yes and our no, which gives clarity into who we are. Okay? Now the other major, hold on a minute, I'm having a moment. I know somebody said it's kind of warm in here. We're at the place where we don't know whether it's cold, hot, whether it's 70 degrees, 60 degrees. This building takes a long time to either heat up or cool down, and so I apologize if it's a little off because we're not sure what the weather is like. But thank God I've got a little fan up here. So this other major thing that I want to share that I think, which is probably to me the whole kit and caboodle about why it is that we are not our authentic selves or we can't feel comfortable being ourselves, and it lies within our fears, okay? There are a plethora of fears that stand in our way, some known and some unknown. But, it could be fear of being vulnerable, fear of intimacy, fear of being judged, fear of making mistakes, fear of looking foolish, right? Fear of rejection, fear of being alone, name them. For every situation, there's probably a fear that is associated with it. I'm not talking about phobias. That's something a little different. But I'm talking about the fears that we have, insecurities that come up. And these are the things that stand in the way. And some of them are conscious and some of them are unconscious. But whether they're conscious or unconscious, they usually will stand in the way of us being our authentic self, of us living our best life now. And the sad part is that everybody has some. But we think we're the only ones, but everybody has some. There's no perfect person on the face of the earth. There's nobody that escapes having some sense of inner fear or conflict of being themselves totally. And then there are some who have no inhibitions, who have no clue. Right? Right? They have such a high regard for themselves that they can't see themselves at all. I won't go there. But you understand that that's a malady. That's something that's deep. Okay? When you are so out of touch with your own sense of self that you are also completely out of touch with anything outside of yourself. You are not in touch with what is inside of yourself, and you are not in touch with what is within outside of yourself. That's a deep place to be in. Okay? So the work then is looking at our fears, and because some of them come disguised and hidden, and we project them out, we dress them up. Some of them may come. You have to figure out what it is. It might be a defense mechanism that you have, but it's really a fear. But it acts as if it's some kind of defense mechanism for you, to protect your ego, to protect your sense of being. I'm standing up for myself when really you're fearful that you're going to be rejected or whatever. So it's really an opportunity for you to figure out what really is taking place within oneself. So before we go with this new year, and we start, not before, but while we are setting our new goals and doing our vision quests and vision maps and treasure maps, and before we are telling God what we want and writing and making our list and doing our planning and getting everything set up, it might be all for naught if you are unaware of how you're stepping in your own way, standing in your own way, if you're unaware of how you are sabotaging the very things that you desire because of the unconscious expressions in your own self. So we want it, but we're also unconsciously pushing it away. We're not in touch with, we want it, but we don't know, well, what's standing in the way? When I ask myself, what is standing in the way? It's me. And if I don't understand what is taking place in me that is standing in my own way from me moving toward that which I desire, which I say I want, that I've been saying for a while, well, then why aren't I manifesting? It's my own presence. So if we're going to reclaim our time, this would be a good thing to reclaim your time to work on self. Do your mapping, your treasure mapping, your goal setting, do all of those things. But at the same time, you must do the work on self so that these other activities will actually have a chance to come to bear. Because you won't be sabotaging, you won't be, end around in your own self and your own desires. So use this time to gain some insights, inner sight into your own being, to see what it is that is stopping you from living your best life. And here's a hint. If you're coming up with people, places, and things, you're on the wrong track. Okay, I'm just going to tell you, if you come in, well, what's stopping me is, see, if I could just get rid of Johnny, Mary, if I could have more money, if I could do that, all of that is the wrong track. Because you've given all your power out here. What is stopping you within your own being? That would be your hint to do the work. Go within and look at the authenticity of your own presence. Can you stand in the light of your own being? Can you, what's the level of your comfort in being your own true self? Can you be with yourself and love yourself? There are some people who can't even be with themselves. They got to occupy, they got to have all this stuff going on so that they will not be with themselves. I'll go to the movie, I'll do this. There are times when we need to do things, but there are times when you need to be comfortable just being yourself. So, remember those 3 things I asked you to identify and to write about in terms of what it is that you would need to be or to do in order for you to live your best life. Well, I want you to also add this. I want you to, in those 3 things that you have identified, I want you to begin to look at each one, but to look very, very deeply into, well, what is it that is stopping you from manifesting that or engaging with that or experiencing that leads to your best life. So you've identified it, which is nice, which is what we do when we have our goals, but we don't go any further. So I want you to then, now, well, what is it that's stopping me? I can come up with what I want, but I'm not sure what is standing in the way of me experiencing and achieving and being what I want. So what you're going to do is you're going to look at those inner things, maybe even the unconscious things. What is this? Where is there any area here about this that I'm unconscious about? What is it that needs to be revealed in me? What fears may lie underneath? I want you to begin to see it, and I want you to call it out. Because if you can't see it and you can't call it out, you can't heal it. And once you begin to call it out, you're going to call it out by seeing your unconscious stuff as well as your conscious stuff. And it's important to be able to do that because there's a story that Jesus, in the scriptures, about Jesus going, it's from Matthew. I'm going to read this. It's about him healing what the scripture calls an unclean spirit. And it just says this. Jesus and his companions went to the town of Capernaum, and when they came on the Sabbath day, he went into the synagogue and began to teach. And the people were amazed at his teaching, for he taught with real authority, quite unlike the teachers of religious law. Suddenly, a man in the synagogue who was possessed by an evil spirit, and when they say evil spirit, some say evil, some say unclean, and we'll talk about that. But by an unclean spirit, an evil spirit, shouted out, "Why are you interfering with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." And Jesus cut him short and said, "Be quiet and come out of the man." And this, I love this part. "Come out of the man," he ordered. And at that, the evil spirit screamed and threw the man into a convulsion, and then he came out of him. Amazement gripped the audience, and they began to discuss what had happened. "What sort of new teaching is this?" they asked excitedly. "It has such authority. Even evil spirits obey his orders." And then the news about Jesus spread quickly throughout the entire region. And for the message, I like to read sometimes too. It just says, he's gone. It says, when they were in Capernaum, Jesus arrived, and he lost no time in getting to the meeting place. And he spent the day there teaching. And they were surprised at his teaching, so forthright, so confident, no quibbling and quoting like religious scholars. Suddenly, while there in the meeting place, he was interrupted by a man who was deeply disturbed and yelling out, "What business do you have here with us, Jesus of Nazareth? I know what you're up to. You're the Holy One of God, and you have come to destroy us." And it says, Jesus shut him up. "Quiet, get out of him." And it says, the afflicting spirit threw the man into spasms, protesting loudly, and got out. Everyone there was incredulous, buzzing with curiosity. What's going on here? A new teaching that does what it says? A new teaching that does what it says? He shuts up defiling demonic spirits and sends them packing. News of this traveled fast and was soon all over Galilee. Now, metaphysically, we know that everybody has some, not evil spirits, but we have some limiting thoughts, limiting feelings, right? We have some negative thoughts. We have some negative feelings. We have some things that take over and cause us to do and be and act in a certain way. All of us do. And what happens is we have to come to the point of clearing that out, calling that out. This is why I want you to look at those three things, and then I want you to write down what's standing in the way. What spirit, what fear, what doubt, what's standing, because that needs to be called out. That is a limiting spirit. That is a negative spirit that keeps you from being and living your best life, but you got to call it out. Now, when you do the process of calling it out, looking at your stuff and calling yourself on your own stuff, it might not look pretty. It might not feel pretty, right? Because it said that spirit tormented him a little bit more and got in there. You might struggle a bit. This is why we don't want to do the inner work, because sometimes it feels hard. Well, but don't worry about struggling. Don't worry about it being a little challenging, because eventually when you stay with it, it's going to cast itself. It'll be gone. It will be out. It will come out. But what happens is we don't want to look too hard because it feels bad, and we don't want to own that this is a part of me, so I'm going to project it out. That's part of you. Do that inner work. Clean out the spirits that don't belong there. With spirit, I mean the consciousness that is holding you back. Because once you can expose your hidden fears, your doubts, your insecurities, all these things, your flaws, all that stuff, once you can expose that to the light of the Christ, great things happen. Healing takes place because the light will drive out the darkness. You must expose the darkness to the light. You must be able to call up what is here and let it be seen. You don't have to show it to everybody, but at least don't hide it from yourself. See what's there. Bring then light to it. Bring the light of truth. So I don't want you to beat up on yourself. See it, own it, acknowledge it, and then forgive it. Be compassionate with what? With self. Recognizing everybody has this. I'm not the only one. It's okay for me to see this, whatever. And I cast the light of truth upon it. And once I shine that light, it begins to heal itself. And it has no more power over you because it only has power through your ignorance. It only has power through your being unconscious. It only has power through your refusal to see it. When you see it, it weakens. When you see it, it has to dissipate. When you see it, you're calling it out. And then heal yourself, Bless yourself. Affirm the truth about yourself. Not the little truth, but get back to that Spirit, God, Christ-centered truth of who you are. And that then begins to do the work and heals you. It flourishes in you. So all of a sudden, your best life is the only life you will have. Right? The best life. So reclaim your time. Be resolute in your purpose to clean up and clear up your consciousness first and foremost. And doing that with love and compassion. And all of a sudden, you will simply be yourself. Blessings. Blessings.